Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome everyone to today's explainer, where we are going to absolutely master Section 12 of the 2024 Canadian Electrical Code. Look, if you're a beginner apprentice trying to bridge that massive gap between freezing your fingers off on a brutal Canadian job site and sitting in a nice heated room staring down your Red Seal exam, well, you're in the exact right place. So, grab your highlighters, I'm your instructor, and we're going to break down these conductor rules in a way that just makes absolute sense in the real world.
Here is our roadmap to crushing the code today. We've got wire types and environments, 2, running conductors in parallel, 3, splices and terminations, 4, handling aluminum conductors, and 5, a rapid-fire Red Seal exam prep. Following this structure is going to lower your cognitive load and give you exactly what you need. Let's get to it.
Section 1, wire types and environments. Let's see how this builds our foundation, starting with matching the actual wire to the brutal reality of the environments we work in every single day.
Now, this breakdown brilliantly illustrates Rule 12-102. The code is super strict here. Wire insulation must be rated for whatever it's exposed to. Take T90 nylon, right? It's an incredibly common wire. But if that T90 is exposed to oil, its maximum allowable insulation temperature drops dramatically to 60 degrees Celsius. In oil, you could also use PRI, which is rated for 60 degrees, or PR2 for 75. And if you're around gas or alkaline, like say an oil refinery, you need GRI or GRI. Honestly, go tab this section in your book right now. It's basically your ultimate cheat sheet for hazardous conditions.
Okay, check out this actual quote, straight from Rule 12-102. Let me translate this dense, legal-sounding code into real job site English for you. Do not pull frozen wire in February. Seriously, if the ambient temperature is so cold that the wire is freezing and you try flexing or moving it, you will physically crack the insulation. And when that insulation cracks, the raw copper or aluminum is exposed, creating a massive safety and fire hazard. You gotta respect the temperature limits of your materials.
Moving on to Section 2, running conductors in parallel. Listen up, because this is a huge focus area for the Red Seal exam, and I'm going to give you a classic memory trick so you literally never get this wrong. Before we parallel, we need to talk about Rule 112-106, which deals with single conductor cables. When you run large single cables carrying over 200 amps, they generate incredibly intense magnetic fields. If you surround that single conductor with magnetic material, you create what's called inductive reactance. The wire will literally bake itself from the inside out. That is exactly why the code dictates that single conductor armored cable used as a current-carrying conductor absolutely must have non-magnetic armor.
So the really crucial point here is Rule 12-108, conductors in parallel. You can only run them in parallel if they're a size 10 AWG or larger. And to remember the strict conditions for these parallel sets, you just gotta slam it. S, they must be free of splices. L, the lengths must be exactly equal. A, they need the same circular mill area. M, the material has to be the same. I, the insulation must be identical. And T, they must be terminated in the exact same manner. Seriously, write SLAM it right in your codebook margins. That simple acronym just bought you free marks. Section 3, splices and terminations. Let's shift our focus to the actual hands-on work of connecting these wires. Honestly, this is where most job site disasters begin. A bad termination means high resistance, and high resistance, that means fire.
I need to call out a major Red Seal trap right now from Rule 12-116. Pay close attention. If you're using fine strand conductors, you must use connectors identified for them or standard connectors with a ferrule. But, and this is a huge but, if you have a solid conductor, ferrule shall not be used. I repeat, never, ever put a ferrule on a solid conductor. It is strictly prohibited by the code because it just won't grip properly and it will absolutely fail under a load.
Now, what happens if a backhoe tears up an underground cable and you need to splice it? Well, Rule 12-112 gives you 3 perfectly legal ways to do this if the original run is damaged. 1, you can bring it up to a junction box protected from mechanical damage at least 1 meter above grade. 2, you can use an approved splicing kit meant for direct earth burial. Or 3, you can use a grade-level in-ground enclosure with splice connectors suitable for wet locations. Ultimately, accessibility and moisture protection are the core safety reasons behind every single one of these options.
Section 4, handling aluminum conductors. Let's tackle the notoriously tricky rules for these guys. Aluminum requires special respect, okay? It expands and contracts totally differently than copper, and it oxidizes instantly, which can quickly lead to fires if you don't follow the code to the absolute letter. You have to follow the specific step-by-step sequence of Rule 12-118. Step 1, strip it carefully.
Step 2. You must wire brush the stranded conductor. Now what's really interesting here is why. Aluminum instantly forms an invisible oxide film the second it hits the air, and that film is a terrible electrical conductor. You have to literally destroy that film with a wire brush. Step 3. Immediately apply a joint compound that prevents the oxide from reforming, unless, of course, the equipment is specifically marked that you don't need it. And Step 4. Only terminate on equipment clearly marked for aluminum.
Now, if you're terminating an aluminum conductor onto a binding screw terminal, Rule 12-118 Subrule 6 gets very, very specific. You must form the wire in a clockwise direction around the screw, and the loop has to be exactly 3/4 of a complete circle. We do it clockwise so that when you tighten the screw, the torque naturally pulls the wire in tighter, rather than pushing it out. And always remember, just one conductor per screw.
Section 5. Red Seal Exam Prep. All right, it is time to crank up the intensity. We're entering the rapid-fire review portion of the explainer. Let's lock in all this knowledge with some real exam-style pressure. Ready?
Here's your first multiple-choice question. A T90 nylon conductor is exposed to oil. What is its maximum allowable insulation temperature? Is it A 90 degrees, B 75 degrees, C 60 degrees, or D 105 degrees? Now, the name T90 makes almost everyone want to just jump at 90 degrees.
But the correct answer is C, 60 degrees Celsius. You'll find this right in Rule 12-102, Subrule 2. When you're sitting in that exam room, remember that environments change the rating of the wire. Grab your highlighter and mark that T90 drops to 60 when exposed to oil.
Question 2. You are terminating a number 12 AWG solid copper conductor. Which of the following methods is actually approved? A. Using a ferrule, or B. Using a standard connector without a ferrule. Think back to that massive trap we discussed earlier.
The correct answer is B. Rule 12-116, Subrule 4, dictates that ferrules shall not be used on solid conductors. If you can just remember that rule, you just saved yourself from a classic trap and earned a very easy point on Test A.
All right, let's do a real-world troubleshooting scenario. You're on a site, and parallel 250 kcml conductors are overheating on phase A. You check, and the insulation types and termination methods match perfectly. What likely caused this to happen? The answer? Unequal lengths. This violates Rule 12-10, Subrule 1F. Here's the actual physics behind the code. Electricity is lazy. It takes the path of least resistance. If one wire is even slightly shorter than the other, it has lower resistance. Therefore, the shorter wire is going to hog all the current, exceed its ampacity, and start to melt. This is exactly why you have to slam it and ensure those lengths are perfectly equal. Final troubleshooting scenario for you. You open a junction box in a dry location and an aluminum stranded conductor splice has completely burned up. What crucial step from the code was skipped by the last electrician? They completely failed to wire brush the oxide film and apply joint compound. According to Rule 12-118, Subrules 1 and 2, without brushing and applying that penetrating compound, the invisible oxide layer acts as an insulator right at the connection point. That creates immense resistance, immense heat, and eventually a fire. Okay, let's lock this all in with a lightning-fast review of the absolute most critical takeaways for Section 12. If the wire is freezing cold, do not pull or flex it. Running parallel, you need a minimum size of 10 AWG and you must slam it. Terminating solid wire, absolutely no ferrules. Got a single cable over 200 amps? It needs non-magnetic armor. Working with aluminum? Always wire brush and use joint compound. So you now know the crucial rules for handling and installing conductors, all the way from the freezing job site to the heated exam room. But that brings up an even bigger question. Now that you've got the right wire, do you actually know how many of those conductors you are legally allowed to squeeze into a single conduit before it turns into a massive heat hazard? Keep that in mind for your next study session. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep studying and stay safe out there.